David Conley Boxing TV. I'm joined by Nathaniel, the Nightmare Collins. Nathaniel, how are you?
Aye, I'm not too bad. How are we doing?
I'm good, mate, I'm good. Let's just start on the Nightmare. I thought you actually, when I first said it, you were going to throw me out the gym. Nathaniel the Nightmare, who you calling a nightmare? But how did the nickname come about, Nathaniel?
So, funny one, or it's not really a funny one, it's pretty unfunny. When we started going pro, I was like, everybody's got a nickname, and I was like, I'm just Nathaniel, which is pretty standard. So I was like, what can I do? At the time I was like proper into Conor McGregor, and I was like, I'm going to call myself Nathaniel Notorious and all that. And I put up like an Instagram poll, or like the wee questions thing on Insta, saying, what's the, here's a kind of vote, anybody get any good nicknames? And it was like a young boxer from like, I think he was Fairvin or something, or one of the clubs, and he's like, oh, the Nightmare. And I was like, the Nightmare. And at the time I was working with Joe, and we were doing like, we were in the van or whatever, and he's like, oh, any suggestions? And he's like, the Nightmare, you should come out with like a mask, come out with the Halloween music. And I was like, that's pretty minted actually.
That's a good idea, right?
From there, like, it just obviously developed, and that was kind of my thing, so no.
I was wondering if it was something to do with being a southpaw as well, because these are all nightmares.
Aye, it kind of tied in well. I'm a nightmare for people when I'm boxing, but it all tied in together. It was good.
That's good. Right, take us back to the beginning. How did you get into boxing? What was your first amateur club?
So my first amateur club was Hamilton ABC, and it was in like a wee shack, Hamilton railway station.
Oh, right.
I stayed out there, so I probably started when I was about 14, 15. I'd went to see my big cousin Ryan Collins. He was boxing at the time. Irvine he boxed for. I seen him in the British Championships. Can't remember who he fought. I think he fought Kez Ashfaq actually. And I was into it. Like, I was a wee fat guy, played the Xbox, loved Call of Duty and stuff, so I was like, I'll go. My mum and dad wanted me to get into a sport. I was never interested, like, I liked playing football, but I hated watching it, so I would run about, but I didn't know what I was doing, so they sent me to boxing, and that's how I kind of got into it.
Did you have natural ability, or was it sort of progressed over the years?
No, never had natural ability. I don't think I had natural ability at any sport. A lot of hard work to get to where I am now. It was funny, like, I used to love boxing, so I loved watching boxing, so I think I'd try and take a bit of everything, but there was a wee period where I was obsessed with Nassim Mohammed, and I was going in sparring, I was doing all the funky stuff, so definitely not natural.
It's interesting, isn't it? How a lot of people think that people have got natural ability, but there's years behind. Boxing's such a hard sport to learn, isn't it? Like footwork and, like positioning and stuff
definitely.
Like that.
Like, when I first started, I used to just turn up to Scotland training that was at Forgewood.
Right.
And I would go in, and I'm like, I think there was boys like David Burrow, Stephen Boyle, like, all going away with Scotland. I was like, these guys are dynamite. How can I not just be like that? Like, how have you learned to be like that? But they were just naturally kind of gifted. And I was like, how can I not just be naturally gifted? But further down the line, obviously, it was just drill, and we got there. So
what was the progression? How many years were you just training amateur, and then, what was the progression to where you got to in the amateurs?
When I first started in Hamilton ABC, I never had it was just like a get fit thing. My mum wanted me to not be a wee fatty, eating sweets, playing Xbox, so then I get kind of hooked on it, and Hamilton was never they didn't have anybody fighting, it wasn't a serious club, so I started getting buses out to View Park, like Toppy Uddingston kind of way, and I joined there, and they had really good boys at the time, 15, 16 youths, like, so I wasn't really getting the attention that I needed there. Lawrence Murphy took the fighters, and his dad Mick Murphy took the kind of new ones and developed them, so I actually learned all my stuff there early, but not good enough to fight. My family moved into Glasgow, I went to Bellahouston. Obviously they seen that I'd been somewhere else, so I started getting my first fights there, but when I had like my second, third, fourth fight, I was fighting like Calvin McCord, he did 60 odd fights, I was fighting like Cash, I fought Cash 3 times, I was fighting loads of people with loads of fights, and I'd only had 4, 5, 6, you know what I mean, at the time, so it was never that good. They were just trying to get people fighting and chucking me in a bit. So I had like half fights against really good guys, half fights against other people, my experience. And then I moved over to Joe. I seen obviously Joe, Stuart and Steph won the Scottish one year, and I was like, they look like they're about their business. They're a small team, compact, so joined Joe.
Where was that? What gym?
He was over at the Gorbals. He had his own gym, Hayfield, which was like, it was just like a school gym hall almost.
Right.
It was in like a deaf and dumb centre. You went in like this wee alley up the stairs. It looked heavy, like shady when you were going in, and then you came in and it was maybe like, probably not even the size of a school gym hall. It was tiny, but just a wee roasting hot room. There was traffic cones on the floor with a bit of bunting. That was the ring, and everybody was just sparring. It was mental.
Proper old school.
Aye, people getting punched up against radiators, doing this kind of novice defence and stuff. It was mental.
I've done that myself.
It was good.
Just touching on that point you made there about fighting, you know, people with more experience than you early on. Do you think that's moulded you into the kind of fighter you are and gave you more experience earlier on?
Aye. Like even now, if you go back and look at any of my interviews from early on in my pro career, I always say, like, I don't want to fight journeymen. Like, no disrespect to journeymen. I think everyone needs to learn the game, but after 2 or 3, you're getting the same thing for everyone. You're getting a guy that's coming to survive, or some of them will maybe have a dash, but they're not going to have the dash for the whole 6, the whole 8, the whole 10. So I very early on said, and you can go back and watch it, I don't want to keep fighting journeymen. I want to just get into it right away. I've never been fazed or bothered by a loss, or fazed or bothered by fighting somebody more experienced, because if you are trying to claim you're the best and you can't beat this guy, how can you be the best? You know what I mean? So that's always been my kind of mantra and motto. And
doing that so early on has probably moulded you more into that type of person as well.
Definitely. I think if I never went into that, because even back then when I wasn't that good, I was going in against these guys and I'm like, I'm beating. You know what the amateurs was like, but I was like, I'm beating these guys. How am I getting the decision? Or I'm not afraid to fight these guys. It was never a case of like, oh, I don't want to go in there and that.
You never went in and felt, you know, out your depth for anything. You were
100%. And like, I've always had a bit of bottle, so I was never like, oh, I'm terrified to go and fight here. It was just, it was what it was.
Good. So now we're in with Joe and that then. So what was your progression up to then? How many fights you said you sort of, and what was your progression after then in the amateurs?
I had quite a good few fights before I went to Joe. I think I had about like maybe 20, but my win ratio wasn't probably as high. Right. I think I did have more wins than I had losses, but it was not substantially more. So I went to Joe. I think my first fight, I actually fought Cash in the Western Districts, and I did lose, but I'm saying I don't think I lost, but it was one of the ones. Good fight. I fought Cash a good few times, so we've always had good fights. And then from that, I think that was maybe my last year youth. I won the Western Districts, and then I fought Cash. Maybe it was a different tournament. Then I fought in the Western Districts, won that. And then after that, I took like a few years off boxing. I was in a car crash and stuff. So after that, I had a good time off.
What age were you when that happened?
I think 18, 19.
Were you seriously injured then? Or?
So I had like 5 people, me and another 4 people in the car, so everybody was quite badly done. The roof got cut off and stuff, so it was quite a serious one. I was in like a wheelchair for a couple of weeks, then crutches and stuff, so bad knees, and I still get bad knees, so it's one of the ones like.
Especially in this weather.
Especially in this weather. I'm sitting and we're saying that now that the people can know we're in the gym. I'm freezing it now.
We were hugging each other a minute ago. So how did that play you mentally? Did you ever think that you were finished with boxing altogether? Or
so
did you have a sort of had to, you know, get back in the headspace again to get back into boxing?
14 to that happened 18, 19. So I'd never done normal kid stuff or normal teenager stuff. So I went on like a bit of a blowout. I'd done a ski season in France and worked in a bar, so I was just mad with it for like 6 months. And then I came back. I was like heaviest I'd ever been, like 90 kilo. And we used to run. I was with Joe, and we used to do this pursuit running where the person at the back would run at the front continuously round this big lap thing. and they were all doing it, and Joe's like, just come back, honestly you'll be fine. I swear I couldn't even run a lap of the track, never mind the pursuit running. So I was like, geez, my mum said to me, if you're going into the Scottish this year, you win it or you chuck boxing, because if you can't beat people in Scotland, how are you going to be the best in the world, you know what I mean? So that resonated with me, and I had like a proper flip the switch moment where I was like, right, I need to do it. So if I never won the Scottish that year, I'd have chucked it.
Wow.
And I did.
Aye.
Fortunately.
So what was the progression after that then? Is you involved with, like, you obviously ended up going to Commonwealth Games, so what was the progression for winning the Scottish to?
So my car crash was 2015. The end of 2015 I went to France, came back 2016.
20 stone. 20 stone.
20 stone. Fat as nails, full of baguettes. 2017 Scottish was the decider for the 2018 Commonwealth Games. So I'd came back, had a few fights in 2016, done my stuff, got back in shape. I was me and the boy that I fought in the final, Junior Burton, were the only two unseeded. So there was Kieran McMaster was number one at my weight. There was a few boys, Boyle, who else did we have? Charlie Doig, Dylan Arbuckle, loads of good boys who are all turning pro now or turned pro now. Kieran was number one kind of favourite pick, so it was one of the ones, and I drew him first. And I went and gave him a couple of 8 counts, like put on a good show, like a clinic, and just kind of just went through everybody. Fought Junior in the final. He kind of went through everybody at his side. He had like 2, 4 like kind of picks, and then it was a pure surprise one, because everybody else who won it was seeded that year. And then after that, Boxing Scotland sent me to Serbia, but Kieran was still the number one pick, so he went to Poland. So it was a weird one. It was like an uphill battle. I feel like my whole career's been an uphill battle. It was an uphill battle, so even though I'd bet him, he was still getting sent away. So I went to Serbia, first international tournament. I fought like Russia, first fight, bet Russia. Mad random country, second fight. Then I fought like Kazakhstan, bet Kazakhstan. So nobody was expecting me. Got to the final and I was fighting a GB boy, Mickey McDonough. And I'd fought 4 days in a trot. He was my last fight. And I get bet in a 3-2 split. So I ended up with a silver in Serbia. But that was a shady decision as well. So I think everybody in Scotland setup was like, oh, who's this guy? Like, came on the scene,
opened a few people's eyes.
Aye, because I'd blasted for everybody in the Scottish. People kind of knew me because, see, back in the day, or even when I first came back, I used to just turn up to Scotland training. I never, like, now people are all getting invited and stuff. I just turned up. I was like, you know what I mean? Like, who's going to say, no, you can't train the day? Nobody ever did. I used to just turn up. Nobody cared. I never get fights in it, but I just turn up and then
see that's
get my face in about it.
You might not think much about that, but that's a mindset thing there. That's not a lot of people have got the kahunas to do that. You know, it's definitely not kind of. I like that. That's
I think everybody used to think, oh, you need to get invited to Scotland training. It used to be at Forgewood. My dad would just drive me. At one of the ones, like, you're going regardless what they're going to say. Your dad needs to take you home. They never did. I never got anything as a youth, but it was good to just be in about it, and that's when I developed. And then Joe, who else, like Mike Keane, Frank Delaney and stuff, they ran it in Spring Hill for a good few years as well, where all the seniors were. I think I was still 16, 17. I don't even think I was a senior at the time. I used to just turn up to that as well. Again, nobody ever said anything to me, so I was like, I'm just going to keep going. So everybody kind of knew my face, but we're like, he's just that wee guy that turns up. But then I started beating people, and it was like a different story, you know. So
what's so then Commonwealth? Then how did?
So that was a funny one as well. So the Serbia one happened, and then Kieran went to Poland.
That was 2017 Serbia, was it?
2017. So Kieran went to Poland, and he got beat. So that was kind of him out of the scene, and I had managed to slot in. Right. But then they were still saying, like, can't remember who else was about at the time. There was still a couple of people like lingering for that spot, and I was like, I should have that spot. I've deserved that spot. Whatever. So we get sent away to. Can't remember where we get sent away to. done whatever, and then I get picked for the Europeans, and I was like, amazing, senior Europeans, like I've never been picked for anything that big in my life. Went away to Ukraine, brilliant experience, like they treated you like royalty, like national sport over there and stuff, so it was brilliant. I fought this mad old Croatian guy. I sound like I'm saying I get robbed every fight.
Everybody did.
I thought I outboxed him, and I never get a decision. We came back for Ukraine, and then like 2 days later they were doing like the president Aibad came, and I ended up fighting like a guy a couple of weights above for the army. He was the captain of the army boxing team. Bet him, good performance and stuff, and then we went to the British, and then they were saying, oh, this is all based on whatever happens here, your Commonwealth Games selection. We've only got like 4 spots we can take. So I was like, no way I'm going, because Sean Lazzarini was there, Rhys McFadden was there, he'd already won bronze. Akil was there, he'd won gold at every tournament we'd been to, like, so there was already like set picks that were definite as going, and I was like, I'm not getting a spot here. They then released it, and it was a full team of 12, so it was brilliant. Ended up getting going, flew out. We went to Ukraine for like a training camp again, kind of games training camp, and then went out to Australia, and it was just a phenomenal experience. Again, we'd done a couple of weeks up in like the Sunshine Coast, but it's a difficult one because, being totally honest with myself, Joe wasn't there, and Joe's pretty hard on me, and we had like Craig and Mike, and I'm not saying Craig and Mike aren't hard or whatever, but like in our own time we were all fanning about, like jumping about on segways, jumping about in bikes, going to the zoo and all that, just mad random stuff, and we were training kinda, but everybody else was down in like Melbourne or something doing like multi-nation sparring and stuff, and we were up in Sunshine Coast like surfing and, you know what I mean, having a pure
maybe
good
not
time.
as serious as it should have been then.
I don't think so. At the time I thought, oh nah, we're doing our training, we're doing good, but looking back at it, I think we'd all done much better, and it wasn't a good Commonwealth Games for our team. Like, I think we only got two bronze medals or something, compared to what they just got there. So it could have went better, it should have went better, but it's just one of them, you live and you learn, isn't it?
So, was it quarterfinals you got to in the...
Quarterfinals, won my first fight. Even then, my first performance wasn't that great. I did win it, got through it, but wasn't that great. I ended up fighting gold medalist Harry Garside from Australia. He was good, so it was a weird one. Again, if Joe was there, he'd have told me exactly what to do, but like Craig and Mike, I went out and tried to box this guy in the first round, big, tall, southpaw, rangy southpaw, and I was trying to counter him and stuff. Came back to the corner, they were like, you need to just pressure this guy, you're not going to beat him by boxing. But it turns out when I went back out, obviously the scores for the first round come up. I'd won that first round.
Right.
See, when I went out and tried to close him down, I played right into his hands, and I was just walking onto shots constantly, so wrong game plan, ended up getting put out, and it was one of the ones where I was like, I'm out, I'm in Australia, and this, you know what I mean, in the Gold Coast, so I was just out partying for the rest of the time, loving life, and I was like, forget it, like, that's what it is.
Aye.
Just enjoy, because I knew I was going pro.
Did
so
you? That was my next question. Was that? I was wondering if the Hingway defeat made you turn pro, or did you already had it in your mind?
I knew
then?
Going to Australia I was going pro, because at that time GB were being heavy funny about Scottish guys getting on. So I think John Dock was on and Lee McGregor was on, and that was only 2.
Right.
And then eventually Scott Forrest was on, and then Akil won like 11 gold medals out of 12 tournaments. He only get bet in the Worlds off of like Galal Yafai or whatever, and then he couldn't get on. They were telling him his style was all wrong, blah blah blah. His assessment was all wrong, even though he's got all these medals. So I was like, I know I'm not getting on GB. There was about 60 kilo boxers on it, like Callum French and all that. So I was like, no point even trying. Like, go to the games. That's the highest you can reach as a Scottish guy. You're not going to go to the Olympics. I was just real with myself, so I was like,
I know there's a lot of politics in boxing in general, but especially in amateurs, there's it's not cliquey, but there does seem to be certain favourites, don't there?
They know who's your face needs to fit the profile. You know what I mean? One of the ones. You need to be yes or no, sir. A lot of arse licking. So. And I'm never been an arse licker, so I was like, it's one of the ones, go and do what you need to do.
So turning pro then, who did you start out with? How did you go and see anybody that you trusted, or how did you start out with sort of promotional and training?
So I was with Joe. I was always going with Joe. Joe had Joe Junior and Stuart Burt Pro. Even for a couple of years before we went to the games, so they went to Glasgow Games then turned pro.
Right.
So we'd seen them, but I feel like everybody's turning pro now. Loads of people are turning pro. There's people like 5 amateur fights and then they're turning pro. So it's weird what's going on now. I think it's like a thing like, oh, we need to go pro, and a lot of people are going pro too early. But
no ground in there. They've not got the
no
experience.
It's they've not put in the groundwork. It's just a weird, strange thing now that everybody's just like, I'm going to go pro. But each to their own. But at that time, Joe and Stuart were the only people I knew that were pro. Ricky, like, it was really not like a thing in Scotland. You had to be like, you had to win Scottishes and stuff to go pro. It wasn't like, I'm just going to win the novices and go pro. You needed to have a senior title behind you, kind of, before anybody took a look at you. So I don't think we had experience and what to ask for when we were turning over, because Joe and Stuart signed with Alec Morrison, and it was just kind of like, sign, you're pro now, you'll get paid what you get paid. Whereas I always felt like, I've just come out the back of the games, won the Scottish, done this, done that, bet all these good boys in Scotland, I should be asking for something to turn pro. But Joe was kind of like, oh, you won't get anything because Joe and Stuart never got anything. But I think just at that time we didn't know what people were asking for, how it was going, so it was a bit of an inexperienced thing. We went with Ian Wilson because main reason is I couldn't really, I didn't believe I could sell tickets, and Ian kind of had like this, no pressure, the club sells itself, like the dinner shows sell themselves, not like he wouldn't want you to sell tickets, but the dinner show sells itself.
There's a members aspect to it and all that.
It's not a pressure to sell tickets, and that for me was like, it was about building my career, not
concentrating
trying to
on
to sell tickets, you know what I mean? So whereas I don't think I spoke to Sam at the time because I just heard a lot of stuff about him. I was like, I think he was MTK Scotland at the time, and there was a load of funky stuff going on with them all breaking apart, and it was just one of the ones. There was too much drama involved for me to want to be involved, and then I didn't. What happened? Something happened with like the Morrisons where I was like, I don't know about signing with Alec, because I think if I remember correctly, at the time they were doing shows in the Double Tree Hilton, for example, and then they'd put on a show with like 2 people on it. It was just a terrible show, and I was like, I never signed. I don't want to turn pro to do that stuff, you know what I mean? So Ian then offered me, you don't really need to sell tickets, I'll help you with your medical, etc, etc, and I was like, right, that looks good for me. Cash has got the British, so that's the kind of track that I want to be on, and that's how that went.
How does I sit down with a promoter like Ian or Sam, or that, just to give value to, you know, anybody watching this, it's about to turn pro or whatever, you sit down with a promoter, do you tell him what you want to achieve out of the sport, or, you know, or does he tell you what he can give you? What was it? Tell me about that conversation. What is a sit down like that involve? So
I obviously didn't know Ian at the time. Joe knew Ian,
right.
Put us on Ian. We went in. We just spoke about what's the future hold, what do I want to achieve. Again, I went in straight away. I don't want to start fighting journeymen. I'll fight a couple of journeymen, but I don't want to, that's not my, because I felt like seeing Joe and Stuart, they'd wasted a lot of time with the first couple of years of fighting journeymen when they could have probably easily jumped into bigger fights sooner. So I said to Ian, like, I don't want to waste time. I'm not in it to waste time. I'm not in it to protect my own. I want to get moving fast.
See how good you really are as well, I suppose.
I want to get titles straight away. I want to make money. Like, that was the big thing. I wanted to go in and make money. I wanted it to be my full-time career. So Ian was more or less, yep, we can do that, no problem. My first sit down with Sam was different because I'd already done 3 years as a pro. I knew what I brought to the table.
Experience.
So I knew what to ask for. I knew what percentages to ask for. I knew what to. So let's say, for example, Sam had a bit more, not leverage, but a bit more bargaining tools because Fight Zone were up here and there was a promotional deal. So he's like, well, I've put this promotional deal together, I've put this contract together, I've managed to negotiate you this, this and this, so I'm entitled to this. And it was hard to argue with that because nothing like that was happening in Scotland. And now at the time, you needed to either go down south or be part of a bigger thing. So it was easy for me to agree to terms, but also I've done this in the last 3 years. I've got the Celtic, I've fought these people, so actually on these shows this is what I want. And I could go back with a negotiation. Now when it comes time to renegotiate, I'm that wee bit further on again. Now I can say, right, this is what I want, this is what I want. And if you don't, you know what I mean? So it's hard for a young pro in Scotland because what bargaining chips do you hold? If you don't go with that guy, next guy's going to offer you the same thing because they know that you need to turn pro with them or you're not going pro. You know what I mean?
See, you mentioned protecting your O there. Do you think that's why the O gets protected so much? Do you think that's more damage than losing your O, or do you think if you lost your O in a barnstormer, do you think people do protect their O? That's the sort of question I'm trying to ask you. And do you think that's...
It's a difficult question because I think as boxers you'll fight anyone. A lot of people fight anyone. I don't think anybody's going to get opponents put up to them and they'll be like, nah, I'm not fighting them. One, you don't want to look scared. You don't want to... So even if you're terrified, you're not going, nah, I'm not going to fight that guy because everybody then knows. But word travels fast. Boxing's a small community, so he knocked back him, he knocked back that. It's not happening.
Aye.
So in that sense, I think a boxer would fight anyone, but when you're starting out, your promoter wants to get the most out of you.
Aye.
Initially,
that's a marketing ploy. They're unbeaten.
That's
I
why
suppose.
I kind of like what's happening now in Scotland. Is like, for example, Ian's got Martin Ahmed. Sam's done the wee 4-man tournament with people just starting off, so you've got people 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 all fighting each other for Scotland, and I think that's good. Like, get that stuff sorted. Like, don't fight journeyman. Why? Because
see who's the best in your own wee pond.
So I kind of like that. What's happening now, but it's one of the ones, isn't it? It just depends on who the person is, really.
So, touching on your trainers there, who did you start out with, professional?
Joe was my first, well, not my first, Joe's my professional coach, still is now to now, so start. Right through, I've been with Joe for like 7 years now, probably, so obviously he'd already took Joe and Stuart pro for a couple of years, so it was an easy one. Like, it wasn't like I went pro and Joe had to go and get his licence. He'd already been training them
for all in place
for a while. So
after that, went with Ian. How many fights were you before you got your first title with Celtic?
So I think I fought for that when I was 5-0. Or
5-0.
Did I fight for that in my fifth fight? I can't remember. What had happened with that was, I think I did like I had 3 or 4 fights, and I was sitting again on interviews, don't want to fight journeyman. It was Joe that said, like, Monty's your weight, and he's like 10 or 11-0, and he's talking about a step up. And then Joe said to Ian about getting it sorted. So I think Ian put it forward to the board. The board said, you've not had enough fights. So I think I then fought another fight or 2, and then I think Joe spoke to Ian, Joe spoke to Sam, and kind of set it up.
Monty was with Sam at the time.
Monty was with Sam at the time, and then the board approved it then. So I think I was maybe 5-0. And that was like, it was ideal for me because actually a lot of people thought Monty's 11-0, he's going to... A lot of people thought I'd never been down at 9 stone, so I was going to struggle with that. Then they thought maybe you'll struggle with the 10 rounders but I was never like that. I was saying right away, like, I don't want to do any 4 rounders, like I'd rather go in with a 6,
straight
6, 8, so on and so forth. So I've always been very ambitious for the start. But I think a lot of people thought Monty was going to be a real tough challenge for me, and like only me and Joe knew how I was.
Aye. So, and with that, you stopped him in the 5th round?
Stopped him in the 5th round. I think I put him down like 4 or 5 times. It was a good fight. 5 times I put him down, and it was different. Like, I put first shot, I'd wobbled him, dropped him with like a headshot, second shot, body shot, third shot, body shot, next one was like double jab straight, and then he gets stopped on his feet. So it was,
Right.
I mixed it all up,
Aye,
and I
aye.
showed kind of in that fight what I can do, and that I'm ready to up the levels a
Yeah,
bit. and
variety, aye.
It was a big, I would say it was a big performance for me because, like I was saying at that time, again, especially that was like what, 3 or 4 years ago, and nobody was fighting domestically for some reason. It was just one of the ones.
So then after that, you did a couple of fights again. Jordan Ellison, Felix Williams. Then it was a Commonwealth after that. No, Commonwealth.
Felix Williams was the Commonwealth.
So you were just talking about going sort of 10 rounds there. Obviously, you only went to 5 rounds. Up until then, you'd only went to 6 rounds. This was going to be your first 12 rounder. Did that hold any trepidations or anything?
No.
Fitness was fine.
I was probably in the best shape of my life for
Were
that
you?
one. Legit, like it was summer. That was an exciting one. It was summer. It was an open air. It was at Hamilton
That's
Aki
aye.
Stadium, so it was an open air, first open air in Scotland since Mike Tyson came or something. So
Wow,
it was
was
a
it?
real
Aye.
big event. So
And buzz about the place.
aye, big buzz about the place, and then nobody else had fought for a Commonwealth title at the time, like Lee McGregor. Josh Taylor had obviously won against O'Hara Davies or whatever. Lee McGregor won his Commonwealth, and then it was me. So they're two big names in Scottish boxing now. So I was like, boom, this is your chance to shine. Commonwealth title, like who else is doing that? Who else is going to be doing that, you know? And because it was a summer one, so the training was fun. Like I was out running every day, like loving it because it was a scorching. It was great experience.
Another early stoppage.
Aye, so I never expected that one because that dude, even though he was like unorthodox, we'd watched him and he was like just kind of game for it. So he was taking out his opponents, and I think he had like 26 knockouts out of 29 fights or something. So he was stopping people, even though it was in Africa and you don't know what's going on over there. But just to be stopping 26 people, you can obviously dig a bit. So it was one of the ones we didn't know what was going on. But then,
And did you feel that power at any stage in the fight?
no, it was
No.
a real strange one. Like that guy missed weight and everything. I don't know if he was all in the right headspace, so it wasn't really a good. After it, people were like, oh, that guy was a mess. So one of the ones where you're criticised
not
for
giving you the credit.
like you can only beat who's put in front of you. So, but the following guy, my first defence down in Bolton, Fimbani, he was good. So he was like 10-0 or 11-0 with like 7 or 8 knockouts. Can't remember. He could dig. I never felt. I just knew he could dig.
Aye.
It wasn't like he's hurt
you
me
were
or
hurt.
I just was like, he's obviously got a solid punch. But again, like it was just one of the ones. It was just too much for him.
And it was another stoppage. So at this stage, you're getting a bit of a name for.
Aye.
What would you say that? Do you have raw power, or is it your sort of southpaw style that they don't see it coming? What would you put down to that?
A bit of both. Like I'd say I've obviously not got one punch putting people to sleep power, but I would say I hit hard
can
enough.
dig.
Like you don't want to get hit all the time. So when I put them together, it's one of the ones. But Monty put him down multiple times. Felix Williams put him down. This dude put him down before I stopped him. So he gets stopped on his feet as well, I'm sure. No, actually, he get dropped and stopped. So same as the next guy I fought. So I've obviously got enough power.
Is that the Mexican boy?
Mexican
Talking
boy,
about-
aye. So
He'd been in with world champion Navarrete.
and stuff. So I've obviously got enough power. I think my record doesn't show it because my early fights, like my first fight, I fought a guy 10 plus stone, and I was 9 stone or 9 something. Same again. Jordan Ellison was 10 plus stone, 10 and a half stone. Same
If it
again.
was
So
evened out,
aye,
you
so I had like
could have stopped him.
I had like 4 or 5 fights early that were all guys a couple of weights above, just filling in. So if I had to get 9 stone guys for the get-go, I'd have probably had more stoppages.
Aye. So after that, you defended the Commonwealth again.
Yep, Jacob Robinson, that was in the Hydro. That was a good experience because obviously the Hydro in Glasgow is obviously a big bread and butter for fighting in Glasgow, and
Your first time you done 12 as
first
well.
time I done 12, aye. It was
No
that.
problems.
Nah, no problems. That was one of the ones. Like Joe says, just outbox this guy for 6 to 8, and we'll see how we're doing, see if we can get him out of there. So I could have put my foot on the gas at 8 and probably went for it with him, but I get back at 8. I remember looking at the card, it must have been 9. I looked at the ring card and it was 9, and Joe's like, you're schooling this guy, he's no laid a glove on you, blah blah blah, like, don't go for it, just get 9, get the 12 under your belt. So that was more a see how it goes.
That's good corner work, that, but in it, because a boxer's natural instincts is always, so I'm putting on him, I can stop it here.
I think I put him down in the 8th, and Joe's like, don't get excited, don't go for it, because anything can happen, but you're boxing beautifully, like, this is a masterclass, keep it going, like, why change it if it's not broken, type thing. So it was good, great game plan for him.
So that was during, there was a couple of the fights during COVID and all that. How did the COVID affect you?
I don't even remember really, like,
fight wise, just an activity.
I don't remember when my last fight was before COVID. I think I fought, it might actually been Monty, and then that would have been the end of 2019. Going into the start of 2020, I was maybe meant to fight. I actually think I was scheduled to fight February, and everything cancelled.
I think Jordan Ellison was in January.
Oh, Jordan Ellison was in January, you're right. So Jordan Ellison was meant to be a set-up for March. I was meant to get a big fight.
Right. March,
I think we went into first lockdown or something. So, but honestly, I kind of liked that break, and I had a lot. It sounds bad to say because obviously COVID was a bad time for people, but COVID was probably the best time I ever had. I'd done a lot of good stuff, done a lot of fun stuff. Like, I was out doing David Goggins challenge, running. I was running mountains. I was doing like all the Monroes. You know what I mean? Like, it was a great time to clear my head and.
I think it was for a lot of people. Obviously, like you touched on, it was a bad time for a lot of people. But you know, see that no traffic on the road, and you know, even like when I was walking every day myself and looking up, no airplanes. It wasn't until they came back I was like, wow, this has been so good. It was a good headspace for a lot of people.
Like, I think obviously if you got ill during COVID or you had family ill during COVID, like that obviously was a downer. But my mum's very anti like COVID, anti-vaccine, anti-everything. So I was, which was funny because at the start, me and all my mates were like going out and training. I was bringing people over to my back garden and training, and my mum was going off her head, can you bring people around, blah, blah, COVID. And then maybe a few months later, she was like, I've been doing loads of research, like, it is what it is. It's just a blown up cold type thing, obviously. It wasn't for some people, but you know what I mean. Everybody's got their own opinion on that, and I'm not going to go into it. But I was never
for healthy people. It was a cold essentially.
And I think a lot of stuff was fearful. A lot of people were fearful of something that they didn't know. But I was never like. I was like, what it's what it is. And you can't just live your life in fear. So I started my business in COVID. I started boot camps in COVID. I was living life. So for me,
a lot of positives came.
Like, they 2 years passed. Like nobody. Like, couple of years passed quick, and I was just brilliant. And then they done like a pros can train now, so this is how I ended up with Sam. They done pros are welcome to train. Nobody else can go to the gym, but pros can go to the gym. So Sam then let in, who did we have with him? Can't remember, but whoever had communication with Sam at the time, Sam gave Joe access to the gym, so we were in and out the gym every day. My contract was coming up. I was getting frustrated with Ian because, like, Cash had fought on 2 Matchroom shows. Martin Harkins fought on a Channel 5 show. Boris fought on like a boxer tournament. So I was like, how's all these people getting opportunities? I'm not getting nothing. And then I was like, I don't want to ride off the back of Cash. Like, it seemed to be a lot about cash. And I was just getting a bit fed up with it. And if that was my problem, it is my problem. I've not got any bad intentions to Ian or anything, but at the end of the day, like, it's a business. You sit about, you don't get nothing if you don't speak up. In life, if you don't speak up, you're not going to get anything. Or if you sit about, and Ian's get 30 people to worry about, so he doesn't know how I'm feeling. So unless I say it, but I went in a couple of weeks before and I said to Ian, listen, this is what I'm thinking. I'm probably going to leave unless in the next 3-4 weeks you can come up with something to make me stay. And I said, this is the contract and the offer that Sam's got me, so I'm not going behind your back, and I'm no hiding anything for you. But unless you can match something like that. But I gave him his time, and nothing ever happened, and it was like, I can maybe get you a 1-fight deal or a 2-fight deal with Matchroom based on cash, and it was like one of the maybe ones where you need to go and fight in a Matchroom show, fight a Matchroom fighter, and maybe win your spot. Not that I'm not confident of doing that, but it was just one of them. A lot of maybes, if buts and maybes, so
Aye.
it was one of them.
So this leads us to the here and now then. We're up to British title. So the Nick Ball fiasco, what happened there? The two yous get mandated for the British, is that right?
We get mandated for the British, so first what happened was it was me v Raza Hamza, and Nick Ball v Louis Lynn was the eliminators. Louis Lynn pulled out on their side, probably through a BT saying like you need to pull out because it was BT v BT. So he pulled out, Nick Ball was automatic, so it was meant to be me v Raza. Raza fell out his manager and withdrew automatically, so it was me v Nick. I had the Jacob Robinson fight already lined up, fought Jacob Robinson in my hand. It wasn't broke, but it was severely swollen and injured, so I was out for a good few weeks. So they decided they're going to take another fight. In the meantime, Isaac Lowe, and obviously he dramatically, so he was like, had about 3,000 followers, dramatically chinned Isaac Lowe, went to 30,000 followers, thought he was an absolute superstar. So me and him then had this big Twitter beef where we were arguing, blah, blah, blah. And then it was a funny one because apparently it was 100% done, contract was coming, blah, blah, blah. Then they pulled out. So it was just a weird one where it was meant to be 100% done. A random page on Twitter put up, Nick Ball will not be fighting Nathaniel Collins for the British, blah, blah, blah. I text Sam, I was like, what's going on? You're telling me it's 100%, I'm training like a beast. This was meant to be a payday before Christmas type thing, like, what's going on? He's like, nah, just rumours, like, and I was like, well, in my head I thought it's a strange one for rumours, why would somebody randomly post that? So somebody knows something somewhere. Lo and behold, he phoned them, that was maybe a Friday, I said to him, so he phoned them on the Monday. No, Nick Ball's out. So it was a bit of a kick in the teeth.
I was doing a bit of research yesterday, and there was some he said that you didn't want to fight him. Is that just?
So obviously,
what's he saying?
He's claiming that I didn't want to fight him from when I had the injury, but I'd put up a whole post video like I'm clearly injured, my hands are swollen up, I can't. So I fought Jacob Robinson like 13th of May, and they would try to give me 6 weeks to fight Nick Ball. But it would have took me 3 weeks for my hand to recover, so then that would have given me 2 weeks of spar and 1 week to lose weight. So it was just unrealistic, like they were trying to shaft me. So it was like, no, you'll take this on these terms, or we're going to call you out for thinking, whereas I was injured, so why would you not want to fight me with a full camp? Didn't make sense. Even 6 weeks was tight. 6 weeks without an injury is tight after I've just fought. Because I'd done a 3-month camp for Jacob Robinson. You want me to come out and then go into a 6-week camp for Nick Ball? It just wasn't realistic. So after my injury happened, it was all good and well, and we were cracking on. So and they pulled out, and it was one of the ones, like, he thought he was a big shot now. He's got all these followers, he's got all this name in boxing now. So they decided, no, we'll not fight you, we'll fight on York Hall against that last guy he chinned. So that's what it is.
Do you see that? There's a wee bit of story behind that now. Do you see that one for the future? You and Nick Ball? I
hope so, but the only reason that happens is a world title. There's no other reason. Like, he doesn't like me, I don't like him. I don't think there would be a fight in between, because now he's talked shit and he's saying, I'm too good for you, I'm above your level, why would I go backwards? So his only moves forward now until he gets bet. And again, now he's said that if he gets bet next fight, he's no coming back to me, and I'm giving him a shot now. Like, that's not how it works. So,
and do you win that fight?
I genuinely believe I do. So you watch his last fight where that boy just chinned in the first round. Now I'm not saying he's no good fighter, great fighter. He's obviously got power, but the last guy upright, chin up in the air, waiting for him to come, leads over the top, leaping hooks. Isaac Lowe, very stiff, very upright, no lateral movement. So the last couple he's fought, but then he went 12 with the guy for Africa, a big tall guy that was all wild and stuff. So my style's not suited to him. I hit, move, my head's off centre, you know what I mean? So he would really have to, like, it would be a long night for both of us. I genuinely believe that. So, but I don't think I get chinned. So it's tough, difficult. Is he going to outbox me? I doubt
think
it.
it'd be a really good fight. So now, who you mandated to fight now for the British, and when is it going to take place?
Called James Beach Jr. So I was meant to fight Raza Hamza. He had already had a fight lined up with this James Beach Jr. for the IBO International, and James Beach won. And then whatever happened, he then obviously got slotted in. So I don't know if that's what normally happens. Like if you beat the guy that's meant to fight, you become the guy. But it seems like the right thing to do, the right progression. So I'm fighting him. He's like 14-3 or 15-3 now.
Have you seen much of him?
I seen him fight Dennis McCann. Dennis McCann stopped him, or his team threw in the towel in the 8th against Dennis McCann, which is obviously no shame. Dennis is a good fighter. So he's had a loss to Brad.
What was that at Super Bantam?
That was actually at featherweight.
Oh, was that at featherweight?
Just some WBC international or something.
So he's a full featherweight.
He's full featherweight. So his last few have been at featherweight. He fought Brad Foster at Super Bantam for the British and Commonwealth. So he's already had that 12-round experience. That went to full 12. He fought a boy, Chris Burke, down in London, and that was a 10-rounder for some WBC thing at Super Bantam. So
he's got experience.
He's got experience. He's went the distance, so he's went 12-10, just went 10 with Raza Hamza, so he's done the rounds. So and the only person that stopped him is Dennis McCann. So he's not a mug. He's not a mug. So
confident.
I'm confident. I've watched him. I've studied him. I'm confident in my ability. Like, obviously, he's been a super bantam come to feather. I've always been feather, getting down to feather, so I'm strong. Again, I not got one punch power to sleep people, but I know when I hit you, you're feeling it. So, very confident in it.
Do you make the weight all right, feather? Fine for you. Struggle like
same,
everybody else, but
same as I'm not like could never make it. I make it easily. Like on the night before, like shout out to my nutritionist Pete Bell. He changed the game for me because I've never had a nutritionist before, and what I thought I was doing wasn't right. And I know that so clearly now. But everyone thinks I'm cool, I'm making it. Blah 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 blah. You're not making it unless you're making it this easy. Like last Jacob Robinson fight, I was drinking water, eating yogurts, like chilling the night before. I've never done that in my career. Like, I'm not shiting myself to get up and weigh in. Like, hopefully I'm sound, but night before, eating, drinking, chilling, so it was good.
That's good. So you're hoping to get this scheduled on the Josh Taylor undercard?
Aye, hopefully. Waiting to see what Sky says.
Are they alright with that? They coming up to Glasgow and that? Or?
Aye, I think so. Like Sam sorted it with his manager, I think.
Where is he for?
I'm not sure. I think he's like Midlands kind of area, so I'm not too sure. But I think it's one of the ones where I was already the mandatory, and he's stepped into that position through a win. So I don't really know how that works behind the scenes, but I'm assuming if it's a Sky show, anybody would be happy to get that platform.
Aye, 100%. Aye. So hopefully we'll be tuning in.
Hopefully.
March 4th.
Yes.
Right, I think that. Anything else you want to add, Nathaniel? Tell anybody where you can. What is it you're doing? You're full time professional because you've got this beautiful place, your own gym. Let people know what you do personal training and stuff as well.
Yeah, we do personal training classes. Fortunately, I've got a few boys in here that kind of take the reins now, so I'm just about to go off.
And stuff.
I'm just about to go off on a 6-week camp, so that's difficult because obviously I'm full time, but I've got this place, so keeping the upkeep, running of this, running the house, just to the new baby and stuff. It's one of the ones, so I'm juggling a lot as well behind the scenes on that, but that's what it is. We'll get there.
Brilliant. Well, look forward to seeing you hopefully March 4th.
Yep.
And lifting that British title.
Yes.
Would that be the plan to win it outright, do the 3 defences, or you want to?
Mate,
what would be the next progression?
It's a weird one. I've always said for years I don't really care about the British, and just
You've been that focused on world.
Yeah. I always said the quickest route to world titles is the best route, British or not. So circumstances have it that I'm just in line for it and I'll win it. But if something comes up that can push me towards world title before I need to defend the British, then that's how it goes. Like, I'm not arsed about fighting 3 people to, you know what I mean? Business mind on instead of boxing mind on. There's loads of featherweights, loads of hungry featherweights, so you're going to have to beat 3 hungry guys wanting to come take your spot, you know what I mean? Or do you progress and move further towards your ambition and your goal? Or do you try and hang all about to do this, and who knows what could happen, you know? So I'm going forward. That's all I'm looking at, go forward. So if it's a title defence, that's what it is. If I can get a crack at the European. I know Kiko Martinez just vacated featherweight EBU, so 2 mad Italian guys are fighting for it, so there's no reason that you can't win the British and then jump in, get a crack at somebody there. So
brilliant. Well, Nathaniel, look forward to seeing you March 4th hopefully, and best luck with your career and the new very soon. Thank you.
Good, thanks very much.